12 of the fantasy baseball season, and here's a few hitters I looked at on the waiver wire this week. The first guy's Adam Duvall of the Miami Marlins, so we know the power Duvall has and what he's capable of. And on the season for Duvall, 14 home runs, 48 RBIs, 26 runs scored, 4 stolen bases, 215 batting average, and a 264 on base percentage. But the last couple weeks here for Duvall, he's really on a hot streak and hitting the ball over the fence a lot with the home run ball. 7 home runs, 19 RBIs, 3 stolen bases, 10 runs scored, a 311 batting average, and a 347 on base percentage here for Duvall. So last season with the Braves, he had 16 home runs, and he's picked up where he left off last year here with the Miami Marlins in the early going right now. He's Adam Duvall, and he's still available in 65% of fantasy leagues. So the last few games for him: June 14th at St. Louis, 1 for 3. June 15th at St. Louis, 1 for 3 with an RBI. June 18th at the Chicago Cubs, 3 for 4, 2 home runs, 6 RBIs, 3 runs scored. June 19th at the Cubs, 2 for 4, 2 home runs, 4 RBIs, a stolen base, and 3 runs scored. And June 20th at the Cubs, 0 for 4 in that one. So Duvall, he's finding the power right now. In the last 3 ball games alone, he's got 4 home runs and 10 RBIs. And right now, while he's riding this hot streak and he's available in tons of leagues, he's definitely worth a pickup this week. Is Duvall. The next hit is Ty France of the Seattle Mariners. So Ty France, he qualifies at a lot of different positions here in fantasy baseball. And on the season, first, second, and third, he qualifies at. And on the season, the stats for him: 5 home runs, 27 RBIs, a 268 batting average, and a 357 on base percentage with 32 runs scored. But the last couple weeks here for France, he's been on a hitting tear: 2 home runs, 6 RBIs, 8 runs scored, a 340 batting average, and a 439 on base percentage. So France, he's been playing every day here, obviously, for this Mariner team, and he usually bats 3rd or 4th for this team. So he's in the middle of the order, and he's going to get a lot of opportunities to drive in runs and hit home runs here for the Seattle Mariner teams. The last few games for France: June 14th versus Minnesota, 1 for 3 with a run and an RBI. June 15th versus Minnesota, 3 for 4 with a homer and 2 RBIs. June 16th versus Minnesota, 1 for 2 with a run and an RBI. June 17th versus Tampa, 1 for 4 with a homer and 2 RBIs. June 18th versus Tampa, 3 for 4 with 2 runs. June 19th versus Tampa, 1 for 3. And June 20th, 1 for 3 with a homer versus the Tampa Bay Rays. So right here, he's on a hot streak with a 7-game hit streak and a few multiple hit games in there as well for France. So France right now available in tons of fantasy leagues at 62%, and he's definitely worth an ad here. This week is Ty France. And then this week's Brandon Belt of the San Francisco Giants. So Belt, he's been up and down this season here for the Giants and then for fantasy baseball. In the season, 10 home runs, 26 RBIs, 27 runs scored, 253 batting average, and a 370 on base. But the last couple weeks here for Belt, he's been hitting good: 3 home runs, 6 RBIs, 10 runs scored here, 326 batting average, and a 431 on base. So right now, he's almost getting on base half the time, and he's on a little bit of a home run tear in the last 6 games here is Brandon Belt. So the last few games for him: June 15th versus the Arizona Diamondbacks, 3 for 3 with 3 runs. June 16th versus the D-backs, 2 for 4 with a homer and 3 RBIs. June 17th versus Arizona, 2 for 5 with a run. June 18th versus Philly, 1 for 4 with a homer. June 19th versus Philly, 1 for 3 with a homer and a stolen base. And then June 20th versus Philly, 1 for 5 with a run. So right now, like I mentioned, he's on a home run tear. He's on a 6-game hitting streak as well here is Brandon Belt. And if you need some first base and outfield help, he's definitely worth an ad and available in 70% of fantasy leagues. So you can't go wrong here with Brandon Belt this week. The next hitter is Kyle Schwarber of the Washington Nationals. So he's been red hot, white hot, whatever you want to call it. And somehow he's still available right now, Schwarber, in 40% of fantasy leagues. So this is the time to definitely go out there and get him while he's on a crazy tear. Is Schwarber on the 18 home runs for Schwarber, 42 RBIs, 241 batting average, and a 331 on base percentage. So right here, he's the definition of a Met killer right now. In the last couple weeks for Schwarber, 9 home runs, 17 RBIs, 10 runs scored, 286 batting average, and a 351 on base. So right here, Kyle Schwarber, he's hitting the ball all over the field. And people thought he was just a pull hitter, but a lot of his home runs are coming opposite field. And he's definitely worth a fantasy ad this week as one of the hottest hitters all season right now with the tear he's been on. June 13th versus San Francisco, 2 for 4 with 2 homers and 4 RBIs. June 14th versus Pittsburgh, 2 for 3 with a homer and 2 RBIs. June 15th versus the Pirates, 1 for 4 with an RBI. June 16th versus the Pirates, 1 for 4. June 18th versus the Mets, 1 for 3. June 19th in a doubleheader versus the Mets, 2 for 8 with 2 homers and 4 RBIs and 2 runs scored. And June 20th versus the Mets, 3 home runs, 4 RBIs and 3 runs scored in that ball game. So right here, Schwarber, he's been a home run machine, and he's one of the hottest players in fantasy baseball on the season. And ever since the Nationals start batting him leadoff the last couple games, this national team have been on a tear right now, winning 9 out of 10 games, I believe, and Schwarber's obviously a big part of it. And he's a definite ad right now, so this is the time to get him before it's way too late to add him on the waiver wire. The next hit is Luis Urias of the Milwaukee Brewers to add on the waiver wire this week. So Urias, he qualifies at second, third, and shortstop, so good versatility for the middle infielder, Urias. So on the season for him, 8 home runs, 30 RBIs, 3 stolen bases, 27 runs scored, a 231 batting average, and a 338 on base percentage. The last couple weeks for Urias, 1 home run, 5 RBIs, a stolen base, 13 runs scored, a 283 batting average, and a 411 on base. So right now he's versatile. He's playing almost every day here for this Milwaukee Brewer team, and he's definitely worth an ad this week, and he's still available, Urias, in 87% of fantasy leagues. So the last few games for him: June 15th versus Cincinnati, 0 for 4. June 16th versus Cincinnati, 0 for 3. June 17th at Colorado, 2 for 5 with 3 RBIs. June 18th at Colorado, 2 for 2 with 2 runs, a homer, an RBI, and a stolen base. June 19th, the Rockies, 2 for 4. And then June 20th, 1 for 4 versus Colorado. So right here, he bats usually first or seventh. They mismatch and flop him around the lineup here as the Brewers. But right now, Urias, he's playing well, and he's definitely worth an ad this week on the waiver wire. The next play is Max Stassi of the Los Angeles Angels. So Stassi, he was a recommended ad last week on the waiver wire, and this week once again on the season. I know it's been a small sample in only 75 at-bats, with 5 home runs, 12 RBIs, 19 runs scored, 333 batting average, and a 412 on base in the last couple weeks here for Stassi. 3 home runs, 9 RBIs, 12 runs scored, a 400 batting average, and a 475 on base. So right now he's getting on base, he's hitting for power, and obviously with a weak catcher's position here in fantasy baseball, he's definitely probably a top 12 guy right now at that catcher position, and he's available as well in 62% of leagues as Stassi. So the last few games for him: June 13th at Arizona, 1 for 4 with a homer and 2 RBIs. June 14th at Oakland, 0 for 3 with a run. June 16th at Oakland, 1 for 4 with a run and an RBI. June 18th versus Detroit, 0 for 2 with a run. And then yesterday versus Detroit, 3 for 4 in that one. So right now, he missed a few games because he was banged up a little, but now it looks like he's healthy and he's back, and I think Stassi is going to be a decent ad for the rest of the season here, and could possibly be a top 12 catcher the rest of the way in fantasy baseball, and he's worth an ad this week. The next play is Taylor Ward, his teammate of the Los Angeles Angels. So Taylor Ward, he's been playing pretty decent baseball the last couple weeks here, and on the season for Ward, 7 home runs, 27 RBIs, 24 runs scored, a stolen base, a 248 batting average, and a 335 on base percentage. But the last couple weeks for Ward, 2 home runs, 11 RBIs, 9 runs scored, a 298 batting average, and a 400 on base. So Ward, he's getting on base. He's batting third right now in this Angel lineup, and this Angel offense obviously needs all the offense they could get here, with Mike Trout probably out till July or maybe even August with his injuries. But right now, Taylor Ward, he's red hot, he's hitting the ball, and he's showing surprising power as well here and there. So June 15th at Oakland for Ward, 1 for 4. June 16th at Oakland, 1 for 3 with an RBI. June 17th versus Detroit, 1 for 4 with a homer, 4 RBIs. June 18th versus Detroit, 3 for 4 with a run and 3 RBIs. June 19th versus Detroit, 1 for 4 with a run. And June 20th versus Detroit, 0 for 4 in that ball game for Ward. So Ward here, he's playing every day in the outfield for the Angels. He's batting third or fifth usually. And right now, I think he's a decent ad. Maybe in deeper leagues, he's more of an ad because he's still available in 92% of fantasy leagues. But if you need outfield help or just a utility or bench hitter, I think Ward's a pretty good ad this week. The next hitter is Steven Duggar of the San Francisco Giants. So Duggar, he's been in the league a few seasons now and hasn't had much impact. But now he's been getting almost an everyday opportunity the last couple weeks here for the Giants. And he's been playing well on the season. 6 home runs, 19 RBIs, 4 stolen bases, 24 runs scored, a .316 batting average, and a .380 on base percentage here for Duggar. In the last couple weeks for him, 2 homers, 5 RBIs, 3 stolen bases, 9 runs scored, a .333 batting average, and a .415 on base percentage. So he's getting on base a lot, drawing walks, and he's hitting a lot of singles. Obviously, the power numbers aren't that high, or the extra base hits, but hey, hits are just as important, in my opinion, in fantasy than maybe home runs and RBIs at times. In the last few games for Duggar, June 15th versus Arizona, 1 for 3 with a homer and 2 RBIs. June 16th versus Arizona, 2 for 3 with a homer and 2 runs. June 17th versus Arizona, 3 for 3 with an RBI and 2 runs. June 18th versus Philly, 0 for 3 with a run and a stolen base. June 19th versus Philly, 0 for 1 with a run. And June 20th versus Philly, 2 for 5 with an RBI. So right here, Duggar, he's playing good baseball. He's getting a few multiple hit games here and there. And I think he's going to be a decent player for the rest of the way if he's going to get a starting position the rest of the season here. And he's available in 85% of fantasy leagues. So if you need some hits and an outfielder, I think Steven Duggar is worth an ad this week on the wire. The next hit is J.P. Crawford of the Seattle Mariners, a former top prospect seasons ago in the Philadelphia Phillies farm system. J.P. Crawford, he's starting to find his niche and playing every day here for the Seattle Mariners team. And it's a mediocre season, 5 home runs, 29 RBIs, 34 runs scored, 2 stolen bases, a respectable .281 batting average, and a .341 on base percentage. In the last couple weeks for Crawford, though, he's been hot. 2 home runs, 8 RBIs, 8 runs scored, a .345 batting average, and a .400 on base. So right here, shortstop's not the greatest of positions this season here in fantasy baseball. And J.P. Crawford right now, he's hitting the ball well for average. You're not going to get much power out of him, but he's more of a classic shortstop, defense and a decent batting average here. And he's batting first for this team, so obviously he's the table setter for the Seattle Mariners team, and he's playing really good baseball here. And definitely worth an ad to the last few games for Crawford. June 14th versus Minnesota, 1 for 4 with a run. June 15th versus Minnesota, 3 for 5 with a homer and an RBI and 2 runs scored. June 16th versus Minnesota, 1 for 4. June 17th versus Tampa, 1 for 4 with an RBI. June 18th versus Tampa, 2 for 4 with a run. June 19th versus Tampa, 1 for 5 with a homer, 4 RBIs and 2 runs scored. And June 20th, 1 for 4 versus Tampa. So right here, he's getting hits at least 1 a game, it seems like here. And he's on a 7-game hitting streak, is Crawford. And right now, if you need some help at shortstop, he's available in many leagues at 79%. And I would add Crawford. And the final hitter I would look to add on waivers this week is Jonathan India of the Cincinnati Reds. So India, he's been up and down this season here as a decent ad, and then some weeks he don't do much, and he qualifies at second and third, so decent versatility for India. And on the season for him, 6 home runs, 29 RBIs, 27 runs scored, 4 stolen bases, a .258 batting average, and a .371 on base percentage. And the last couple weeks for India, 1 home run, 5 RBIs, 8 runs scored, a stolen base, .250 average. The average a little down, but the on base is up at .380 here for him. So India, he's been a decent player for the Reds. And another guy like J.P. Crawford, who's the table setter and bats leadoff and plays each and every day. So I definitely think he's worth the guy you should add this week in the last few games here for India. June 14th at Milwaukee, 3 for 4 with an RBI, a stolen base, and a run. June 15th at Milwaukee, 0 for 2. June 16th at Milwaukee, 0 for 4. June 17th at San Diego, 2 for 5 with a homer and 2 RBIs. June 18th at San Diego, 0 for 3. June 19th at San Diego, 3 for 5 with 2 runs. And June 20th at San Diego, 0 for 3. So India, he's been playing pretty decent baseball, and he's still available as well in 56% of fantasy leagues. And I think this week he's worth an answer. That's a few hitters here. I looked ahead here in week 12 of the fantasy baseball season.